Yo, Lord Willin, Jeff Canarsie, Mob Talk Radio. Check it out. Yo, we stay quiet like Russell Buffalino when things will get ugly like Pesci's death in Casino. Who do we know? No one, nobody. But we're all well respected like Della Croce and Gotti. I know wild nights, Havana nocturne. Light up a cigar and watch your spot burn. You'll get patty whacked, I'm tough like Irish dock workers. Rubber guys with guys, hooligans and block lurkers. Corner berserkers, street savvy soldiers. You owe, you better pay. Don't make me say I told you. Code you don't betray, I say what I mean. Providence and Brooklyn all the way to the bean. I'd rather be unseen, like Vinny the Chin. I don't gotta go to Vegas to see cities of sin. Pull the pin, drop bombs like Danny Green. I write homicide like the murder machine. Lansky Luciano, mastermind the racket. Up in the clam house with a million in my jacket. Move around when the streets get darker. Pay homage to real bosses like Gambino and Patriarcha. Mob talking, but you don't talk to the mob. Lord Will and Jeff Canarsie, we stay on our job. This is Mob Talk, straight from the streets. Mob Talk, the life over beats. Lord Will and Jeff Canarsie, bringing you the real. Kill all rats, you already know the deal. This is Mob Talk.
You're a good debater and you're not afraid of a fight. So why have your comments off? Just out of curiosity.
Well, I've turned them on for a lot of things.
On your shorts you do.
Right. In some of my lives, I think they're on. But almost as soon as I turn them on, there's photos of my family's homes.
Okay.
What's the address?
Yeah.
And at what point, and I just want to clarify.
Yeah, please.
I don't have to take that abuse.
Agreed.
Like, I don't come to work and slap the dick out of their mouth.
Kind of why do you have a disdain for informants, in your opinion?
I don't disdain them. I downright fucking hate them. That's what it means. That's okay. But see, this is why I can say it. That Jeff's crazy. He's on medication. I have a disdain for them because no man should ever go to prison on the words of another man, number one. Number two, in 90% of the cases you look at, the informant has done more vile and disturbing crap than those that are being accused. Number three, I find it oxymoronic when a man, Joey Merlino, because everybody knows who he is, he goes in front of a judge, they can bring up everything he's ever been accused of, including murders and whatever else. Even though he's acquitted, it doesn't really matter because it's a character judgment. But yet in that same case, you can't turn that around and say, well, let's judge the rat. Judges don't allow that. So for me, it's like you're walking in, you're already behind the age.
And now it's time for Mob Talk Radio with your host, Jeff Canarsie.
All right, and welcome to Mob Talk Radio. We got a bit of breaking news today, but it's not news that surprises me. I don't think it's going to surprise professional mob content creators, and there's only about 3 of us. I got to be honest. And I think the reality is that anytime you look at a case like this, there's going to be questions. People are going to say, well, do Anthony and Joey deserve to be out? And the reality is, when you look at the sentencing guidelines under 1989, when they were sentenced, the reality is a life sentence is at least a minimum of 35 years, which they've done. And there were some clerical mistakes in the sentencing guidelines. This is why they're getting out. Whether people like it or not, really is oblivious. But it's breaking news in the sense that I can tell you from my perspective, I didn't think either one of them would get out. I think for a decade, I've always gotten that question, and I always said no. And I was wrong. I just didn't think under any imagination the feds would really ever let sort of this go down, but it is what it is. But Joey Testa, one half of the Gemini Twins, is being released in April of this year. As many of you know, Anthony was released a couple of months ago and is currently in a halfway house in Brooklyn in what Rudy Giuliani has deemed a miscarriage of justice, which is kind of laughable that he would say that.
The fact remains that both were sentenced under old guidelines, and therefore a life sentence would have been conducive to about 35 years in prison, which they've done. Perhaps what's more astonishing is the lack of understanding about this case from content creators. Because there was a bit of a miscarriage of justice here that both Anthony and Joey went through, whether you realize it or not. They were tagged and blamed for murders that they did not actually take part in, but because of the DeMeo crew's reputation, and on the words of Dominic Montiglio and others, they got saddled with a lot of stuff other guys didn't. And so if you took the time and you actually read through their appellate paperwork, it's pretty clear cut to me anyway. And listen, I'm being straight up with all of you about it. If I saw something that was a red flag and says, oh no, they absolutely did this, then I wouldn't waste my time even telling you about this part of it. But if you read through their appellate paperwork, it's pretty damn clear cut and dry as to what happened. And it's probably going to, it's honestly, it's taken a lifetime for people to understand that. And nobody is really talking about that appellate paperwork, just like nobody talked about John Gotti and Frankie Lucasio's appellate paperwork. Not a single content creator but me has talked about this, because a lot of these other guys don't want to invest money into research. Instead, they tell you they read paperwork, but it's obvious to me and other people immediately they really haven't. That seems to be the excuse that they use to sort of back up what they're trying to say. And it's just reality. Go out and pay for the damn paperwork. If you read paperwork, that'll tell you a story from A to Z better than any book, any journalist, or any content creator. I'm telling you the truth. Paperwork is where your money should be going. But not everybody wants to invest in paperwork. But they'll lie to you and they'll tell you they've read paperwork when they really haven't. But over on the podcast, that's what we do. A lot of what I do is paperwork bound, meaning that you don't have to take my word for it. I will pull up paperwork. I will, lay it out for my audience like I do here on YouTube and over on my podcast, and I'll give you the facts. This is what the feds say. This is what the witnesses say. This is what the defense laid out. And where's the middle ground? And that's what I've always done. And 9 times out of 10, there's a lot more middle ground than people would ever truly expect. But like I said, if they're not going to take the time to invest in paperwork, then they're talking out of their ass most days. And that goes for everybody that doesn't do it. You have to get the paperwork. You have to pay for it. You have to research it. And you have to contrast it against other legal briefings, which not really anybody does. I can tell you with 100% certainty that nobody really does that. Because if they did, I would know, because I'd say, oh, wow, now I know they got paperwork. But to each their own. Some people like to phone it in and do their own thing. And that's, how anybody's show works for them, works for them. But they wouldn't have to come on here and just blab and make up these ridiculous shorts like they're breaking news if they had just simply go straight to the paperwork. That's the secret to this that a lot of people don't understand about the genre. Paperwork does the work for you. Where I sort of come in differently is that I look at the paperwork and I look for holes in it. Joey Testa is 69 years old and has been locked up since 1989, given a life term for 10 counts of murder and racketeering. The reality for both Anthony and Joey is that they went away in their mid-30s, and they exit to a New York City that is very, very, very different. But regardless of what the morality people will argue with this is, they paid their debt. This is what the law says they needed to do, and this is what they've done. But you will have those that will tongue-in-cheek it, call them murderers, and do whatever else. But they'll always do that from the comfortability of their own home. It's just the reality of the way people are. While murder in general is heinous, despite whatever, unless you're willing to look into the case, unless you're willing to look into the appellate paperwork or that appellate case, then you truly don't understand how attaching 10 murders to them is not exactly the way it should have gone. Nobody is claiming anybody's a saint. So before everybody runs off and says, oh, he's calling him a saint, I'm not doing that. The reality for me is it just takes a little time, a little money, and a little effort to actually look into something, which, like I said, nobody really does. I have. That's been my MO for a long time now, and I stand by the fact, based on appellate paperwork and prosecutorial paperwork, that I believe they didn't commit nearly as many murders as that they got charged with. The Justice Department did their job. They convicted them. And while people may claim, oh, because of a loophole or whatever excuse they're going to want to give it, the reality is look at the guidelines for yourself. It's very easy to find federal guidelines if you know how to do research and understand federal guidelines and laws. It's expected that Joey's going to end up in Brooklyn, probably as well, sometime in April as he begins his reentry into society. And for those who are going to say, because you're going to get one or two content creators that are going to say this stupid shit. Mark my word, you'll email me and go, yep, you were right. There are going to be those who are going to say, oh, what are they going to do? Get back and organize crime? Listen, when you've spent 35 plus years in prison, I don't think your first option is to go back to the streets. It's going to be lifetime provisions, meaning they can't go hang out with anybody that's a convicted felon and stuff like that. Gene Gotti, same way. Gene Gotti cannot be around anybody that does that. It's lifetime sort of parole. But when you've been in prison that long, you just want some goddamn normalcy. And there's going to be those pinheads that are going to speculate because that's all they know how to do. But take it from me. I can tell you this for a certifiable fact. You're not going to see either one of them on YouTube. You're not going to see either one of them writing books. You're not going to see either one of them doing interviews or anything on social media. Both Anthony and Joey are about as old school as it gets. And for those foaming at the mouth thinking they're going to get an interview, just keep it moving. If you thought Joey Merlino's stance on rats was something, you should see Anthony's and Joey's. They didn't have to sit in prison for 35 years. They could have dropped a dime on anybody. It did not. They did not. And it's funny because there's one specific content creator who actually said that Anthony Center had ratted guys out, and that's why he's getting out. Should really clean that up because that's not accurate. Actually, there was two content creators that said that. It's not true. Why would a guy sit in prison for 35 fucking years when he could have dimed somebody out a year in and gotten out? But you're going to have these pinheads that are going to say this stuff because they don't understand the streets. They don't understand the mob. And they're just looking for attention. They're just looking for attention, kind of like the bozos who make shorts that are always factually inaccurate. So there's the news. That's what's going on. He's getting out after 35 plus years. He's 69 years old. I can't imagine that's going to be an easy transition, but it's one that's going to happen regardless. But for those of you that are going to foam at the mouth and just make all of these weird allegations that they're going to go back into organized crime, you're off your rockers. It's just not going to happen. That's not the way the world works. So that's the news. We will be on Saturday night at 8 o'clock for a live. Make sure you tune in and bring your fucking checkbooks. No, I'm just kidding. We will do a live on Saturday night. We got some things to talk about, organized crime stuff per the usual. And that's it. So have a good night and we'll see everybody soon.